Hey guys, I'm Zach. I'm one of the brothers at Brothers Chemical. Today we're going to show you guys how to use Vinyl Off and Adhesive Off Pro and the bagging technique to remove severely degraded vinyl. So we're not talking about newly installed vinyl. We're talking about vinyl on horizontal surfaces, on roofs and hoods especially, that are severely degraded and cracked, that are not responding to heat alone or steamers. So at this point, your only option is really an eraser wheel, or you can leverage Vinyl Off and Adhesive Off Pro and the bagging technique. So we'll go over the exact tools that you need to complete this job, and then I'll narrate a time lapse over it. If you've got any questions, you can always reach out to us, and you can visit us online at brotherschemical.com. Let's get started. We're going to go over the tools that we need to do this job. So the products we're going to be using, this is Vinyl Off. So this is a vinyl graphic remover. This is what's going to soften the film and help us release it and get it off the vehicle. For any excess adhesive residue, we're going to use Adhesive Off Pro. That's all-purpose adhesive remover. We've got a little extension stick. This van is quite tall, hard to reach across, so we'll use the extension stick with a nap roller. We've got scrapers. We've got a receptacle for our chemical, a little bit of plastic to tape off the windshield. The one thing you want to consider is with Vinyl Off or really any solvent, you don't want it to get into those rubber gaskets on those windows. So good thing to always tape it off. I like an infrared thermometer so I know exactly how warm our surface is. Got some painter's tape to tape our plastic, got a receptacle for our chemical. We're only using just a little bit. So we'll use a paintbrush to kind of paint it on. We'll use a roller. If it's running, you're using too much. So we'll have a very controlled application. And then isopropyl alcohol, shop rags, and just a trash can to throw away all the gunk that's gonna come off. So we're gonna film this one. We've got 2 scaffolds on either side of the van. We've got good temperature today, good weather for a removal. I checked temps earlier and they're right at 130, 135. So before we lose this heat, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do here is cover the windshield with painter's plastic. Just makes cleanup a whole lot easier and helps keep Vinyl Off out of those gaskets. Going to glove up. Vinyl Off is very safe, but it can irritate your skin, so you're going to want to use proper PPE. Got a paint tray here. Since we're using a nap roller, you're going to want to use a nap roller, not a foam roller. That foam roller won't hold up to the solvent. We'll go ahead and add the product to our roller and start rolling and softening that film.
So as we roll Vinyl Off on this, it will tack up a little bit and you'll start seeing Vinyl Off mixing with the adhesive, the ink. Some people will, you overuse Vinyl Off and it's just running really badly. If you don't have a controlled application, it can mix with some of that pigment, especially like the FedEx orange. It'll mix with the pigment and then you've put too much on and now it's running down the side of the vehicle. So just be a little bit careful there. And I say this all the time, but a little goes a long way. If it's running, it's too much.
We like applying with a nap roller or a brush, not just because it gets the product on without overspray, but because the contact with the nap roller or the bristles helps force Vinyl Off into the film. So think about it like this. If you've got a brush, you're applying Vinyl Off, you soften that top layer. Well, now when you're going back and forth with the bristles of that brush, you're moving the soft layer away and you're allowing good contact with the newer vinyl underneath. So we applied with the nap roller, but now I've got Vinyl Off in a little bitty pail and I'm using that paintbrush. It allows really good application, but you're just working the product, moving it back and forth, starting to get the heat and the Vinyl Off, getting it all mixed up, and you'll start seeing it tack up. This hood was completely cracked, but there is an intact piece of vinyl towards the center, and I could already see it starting to soften up a good bit. Check that out. So that's a good sign. If it's not doing that, you don't have your heat right. This can be a little bit challenging in some of the northern states during winter months, but you can accomplish the same thing with an IR heat lamp. But it is much, much, much better if you're leveraging the sun. It's that free heat from God. Yeah, we could have covered this whole thing and applied Vinyl Off in 2 minutes, but when you've got good heat and got surface temperatures of 135, it's worth it to take the extra time, use the brushes, use the roller, and help drive that product in. So we wanted to apply one more good layer before we put the plastic on. Surface temps at that time were 135 degrees. We lost the sun a little bit later, but those are good temps.
So right now, we had a little bit of cloud cover hit. Well, sun's coming back out now. But it's reading at 95, 96.
For this particular removal, we left the plastic on for 20 minutes. It could be more, it could be less. It really just depends on the type of film you're working with, the condition of the film, and the environmental considerations that you've got going on. Hotter is always better. The reason the bagging technique works, we kind of stole it from window tinters. So it creates a greenhouse effect where it raises the surface temperatures by 30 degrees, but also prevents the product from evaporating. So it just forces it into the film and allows it to get softened. The bagging technique is not going to be your first course of action. If you've got film that is lightly cracked, just not responding well to heat, you can use vinyl off in a traditional way, but using vinyl off with the bagging technique just keeps you from having to sit behind a whizzy wheel for hours on end, and you're going to have to end up cleaning up adhesive anyway. So just something to keep in your arsenal for when you get some really tough removals. This tool in my hand is a big blade scraper. We sell them at brotherschemical.com. It's a 3x4 chemical resistant scraper that we've cut in half and modified to fit the handle of a paint scraper. This can be really effective and help save your fingers. When you buy our products off our website instead of Amazon, we always include them when you buy a gallon of AOP or vinyl off, but there's such a better option than those orange inch-long scrapers. You can modify them, put them in a paint scraper, use it like a squeegee, which most of you guys are much more familiar with. So save your squeegees, grab a big blade scraper, you won't regret it. All right, so we just spent some time starting to scrape. You want to keep the bag on to keep it hydrated, and you only want to lift the bag on the section that you're working in. You can keep vinyl off handy in that small little receptacle. I had a brush on top of this thing, and when the vinyl off dried off the surface, I just went ahead and applied a little bit more. It helps kind of lubricate, and it keeps it soft and from drying out and getting hard again. And we're just working and uncovering the vinyl as we go, putting it in the trash can, trying to keep a clean work area so that the cleanup is a whole lot easier when we get to that part. When you use vinyl off in a cracked situation like this, it does make good contact with the adhesive and can start to soften it up for you so that you can get it up. But the best product to use is our all-purpose adhesive remover. It's called Off-Adhesive-Off-Pro.
Yeah, we should have used a little rag instead of a scraper.
So when you got surface temperatures of 135 degrees, using something like xylene or butyl acetate, it's just going to flash up really quickly before it has a chance to soften the remaining adhesive. So Off-Pro is a high flash point, low vapor pressure remover, lower odor than rapid remover. It's a fantastic all-purpose glue remover. If you are a window tinter, PPF installer, or install vinyl graphics, you need it in your shop. From here, we're just going to clean the remaining residue, and once it's up, we wipe this area with isopropyl alcohol, and when it's clean and dry, you're ready for new graphics. Hey, thanks for joining us, learning a little bit more about Vinyl Off Adhesive Off Pro and the bagging technique. I'd like to leave you with a couple things. Vinyl Off is a non-flammable solvent that is safe for indoor use and is designed to be used with heat. So if you're not getting the results that you want, heat is probably your issue. It's safe on OEM automotive paint with proper clear, non-porous substrates like glass, gel coat, powder coat in good condition, FRP. But I would like to give one word of warning for enclosed trailers. Those are notorious for having paint that's very cheap and not very resistant to solvents. They're painted in China, sent to the United States, and assembled here. So always spot test in an inconspicuous spot if you're worried about it. You're going to want to keep vinyl off away from all plastics, acrylics, and headlights. It can haze those items. So when you're doing the bagging technique on something like a hood, take painter's plastic, lift your hood up, put the painter's plastic underneath the hood, draping over the front of the car, and close it. That's the best way to mask. On intact or slightly cracked vinyl, you can use vinyl off in a more traditional method. So you'll apply a thin coat of vinyl off to the decal that you want to remove, allow it to dwell for a minute or two, get it ripping hot with a heat gun or a torch, pick an edge and pull. Some people like to put an extra layer of vinyl off on the film directly before heating, but whatever's working for you in your particular situation. Some people like to apply vinyl off in stages. They'll apply a layer, allow it to kind of tack up and dry, apply another layer until they've got the film soft enough to where they can scrape it off. But every single removal is different. It was installed by a different person. The film's different. Environmental considerations are different. So just learn how to use the product and do what's working for you. If you want to learn more about our products, you can visit us online at brotherschemical.com. There you can buy Vinyl Off, Adhesive Off Pro, Ghost Off, Oxidation Remover, and Reflective Off. You can follow us on our social media, Instagram at Brothers Chemical. We're also on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks for joining us.